Shooting, go.
Hey everybody, first and foremost, sorry about the delay and what's going on. I am Eddie Capparucci, and I just realized I had my screen covered. So, hello there. I hope you guys are doing well. I know it's been a little while. I wasn't here last time, but I hope you're all doing well. We're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what does she need in recovery. Really important issue, especially because so often, you know, the person who has betrayed, and again, I use the pronouns. I keep telling you folks this all the time because I work exclusively with men. I use he for the betrayer and she for the betrayed. But again, we understand that table can be reversed with that. Um, so therefore, what does the betrayed need as we're going through this process? Because many times, you know, those who have betrayed can have a very difficult time being outwardly focused and being able to, see the depth of the pain, the understanding of what's going on with the person who is hurt. And so therefore they really struggle at times to understand what do they need in order for healing to take place. The two things that you really need to focus on if you have betrayed someone is they have two major needs. One is a sense of safety, first and foremost. They need to feel safe. They need to feel this level of comfort within them. Um, and that takes time for that to happen. But what those who betray need to do is put mechanisms in place to be able to make that individual feel safe. And it should come from the person who has been betrayed. Now, I know those who, you have your boundaries, okay? But I'd also like to see the person who had betrayed, who's done the betraying, I'd like to see them being more proactive in coming up with ideas on how they can make their spouse feel safer, to feel this level of comfort. And that takes this constant communication back and forth to say, you know what is it that we're trying? How can I help you? How can I help you here? So that's number one. There's a sense of safety with comfort that comes. But then there's something else that needs to happen over time, and that is the sense of value that those who have been betrayed, they ultimately feel valued. Because think about what has happened to them over the course of, the destruction, the destructive behavior. It has played a, it's had a tremendous hold and had a big toll on their self-worth, wondering what's wrong with me? Why do you need something else? And even though we tell them often, you know what, it has nothing to do with you, that the person had this issue long before they even met you. It's still hard to take. It's hard to believe. And even though they may mentally say, yes, I know, you're right, it really isn't about me, still within them there is somewhat of that pain of, why am I not enough for you? So therefore, it's the idea of being able to demonstrate the sense of value, which is really important and critical. So let's go through again. What do the betrayed? What do they need here? And I have here a laundry list of different things that we're going to be talking about. But first and foremost is those who have betrayed need to understand and recognize their emotional triggers. What is it that is causing them to engage in unhealthy behaviors? So therefore, when they encounter them, they now have the tools needed to be able to deal with them in a very effective way. So therefore, understanding the why did I do what I did? Why do I think the way I think? Why do I feel the way I think? All of that constant self-reflection. The person who betrayed needs to understand that you are doing the work necessary, that you have the answers to those questions. This way, because if you do, you are now empowered to be able to stay one step ahead of your addiction. And those who love you will be able to sit there and say, oh, okay, so you're telling me you have control of this now. You're being able to manage it. And that's what we're looking for. So we need to start off with that, understanding why. Why does all this happen? The other idea is that honesty. The betrayed need honesty. And that means, like, what you've done, taking ownership of it, being accountable. But, it's really important. Don't be afraid to tell the truth. There are so many, and I know with the men I work with, I call it the hide and lie factor. They grew up in an environment that even they always felt like they were always getting in trouble. And even if they showed that they were being honest and they were trying to tell the truth, the punishments weren't any less severe. They're the same. So they just kind of think, you know what? Better not to share, better to omit things in that way. So we want to be able to have integrity, because again, that part of what you're building integrity, and that can't happen unless there's honesty that's sitting there with that. So that's a second thing that they need. We need to engage with people who are going to bring positive influences into our lives. So therefore, if you have people in your life who, one, encourage your behavior or maybe even introduce you to those behaviors, you know what? We got to get our pruners out, and we got to start cutting off these limbs that are not feeding us anything positive, and we have to start to replace them with those things that will influence us in a way that, one, honors God, honors our spouse, and honors ourselves. I understand that sometimes cutting off relationships, especially relationship that you may have had for quite some time, could be difficult. I fully understand that. However, the question you need to ask yourself is, what's more important here? Is it that relationship I had with this friend who was part of the deception, or is it my spouse who I want to rebuild this relationship with? And hopefully where you're going to answer is your spouse. And yes, these are part of the consequences that happen based on our actions. There are going to be consequences like that. And we may need to give up some people who may be good people, but yet, for whatever reason, got caught up in the same thing that we were caught up in. So therefore, you want to be around people who support. Um, got to learn how to bounce your eyes. Okay, how not to engage in inappropriate behavior with members of the opposite sex. This is something that I find a lot of men really struggle with. They just think, oh, I'm talking to her and, we're having a good conversation back and forth. And, and the wife's over on the other side of the room and she's wondering, why are you so engaged with her? And then, husband will come over later and say, well, you know what, we were just a chit chatting. We weren't flirting. It was nothing like that. But see, the thing is, again, if I am mindful and I'm outwardly focused, where my attention goes is where my spouse is. That doesn't mean I don't engage in conversations with people, but you know what? Maybe if I'm talking to this woman, she starts talking to me, maybe what I do is I call my spouse over, say, hey, honey, here, I want you to meet someone. Okay? See, it's a different way of approaching people. We can't go back to where we used to be. We have to do things differently. And that means, again, being very aware of the fact that our actions could cause pain, even if we think those actions are really harmless, they could be triggering to someone else. So the idea again of being, okay, you know what? This is what I need to do. Let me do that. Because why am I doing it? Again, I'm trying to develop a sense of security within my spouse, and I want to show her I value, or him I value them. This is a pretty critical one. I tell my guys, you know what? You need to start to change how you make decisions. And instead of just, hey, I'm going to go do whatever I want, or I feel like stopping over here today, or whatever. No, you have to ask yourself this question: what will this action or inaction mean to my spouse? Again, what will this action, something I'm going to do or I'm thinking of doing, or this inaction, something I should probably do but I elect not to do, how's it going to impact my spouse? So what's happening now is you are slowing everything down. Because remember, being compulsive, that's part of the whole problem that we have here, right? Very compulsive, just reactive. What I'm doing is I'm slowing down. Think about it. How will this action or inaction impact my spouse? And now, as I think about that, and I wonder, could it be something that's triggering? Could it be something that's troubling? You know? So then maybe what I would do is I pick up the phone and I say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, or I'm thinking of going and buying that. I'm thinking of calling so and so. What do you think? Are you cool with that? Is that all right for you, or is it something that troubles you? Though again, we are outwardly focused. If we could change anything, if you guys remember, you go back to look at one of my previous shows, you're going to go back to the blind spot. There are 12 different blind spots. And if you could change any of those, the one that you need to change first and foremost and to the max would be being outwardly focused versus being inwardly focused. Instead of focusing on what you need, what you want, what you desire, I look outward and I see what do they need, want, and desire. Um, let's say you do struggle with some sort of integrity issue. Let's say you are tempted. Let's say you are having racing thoughts. Let's say they're more in the way of fantasies. It's something that, you know what, you're sitting here and you're struggling to be able to go and share with your spouse and say, you know what, for some reason I'm having such a difficult time. I don't know what this is about, but a lot of old thoughts are coming back into my head, and I need to figure out what these are. And therefore, also perhaps reaching out to your counselor or reaching out to your sponsor or someone else. But see, this is a really it's a difficult area because there's so many times a spouse is wondering because she'll say, hey, so how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. So any triggers? No, nothing. And they wonder, they're like, how did it all go away? How's it all gone? It just doesn't exist anymore. And in many cases, for some guys, that's what they could do. They could turn it off, turn it down, because again, they are going to be outwardly focused and they're going to be directed right to what her needs are. But in some cases, those thoughts will pop up, especially when when we're drained mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Remember, I talked about that in the past. If we're drained in any of those areas, then there's a strong likelihood that we are going to wind up having intrusive thoughts. And it's not even so much the fact that you have the thought, it's what do you do with it after you have it. So therefore, being able to say, yes, you know what, I am struggling. The idea of making him or her the priority, right behind God. God number one, they're number two. Making them the priority, because let's face it, they've been for so long, they had not really been the priority in your life. And there's something else that was put in front of them, whether it be your pornography or other sexual activities, but it's not them. And so therefore, when you start to withdraw, you know, again, now all of a sudden they're feeling like, oh, we're back to where you were before. Or if you're being very aggressive, okay, we're back to where we were before. It's like, again, shutting me down. You're shutting me out. We can't be doing that. And I do understand that sometimes it becomes very intense. The emotion in folks start to flood over. But what you need to do is be able to say, look, I need a break. I just need a short break. I will be back. And I know I've been told that, yeah, well, I've tried that, but yet she'll still chase me around the house. It's got to be, well, all right, then let me talk to her so I can tell her that there are times you need a break. I know what the fear is there. The fear is you're not going to come back because that's what you've done in the past. You shut her down and you haven't come back. And that's why you need to tell her that. That's what's going on. Um, Being able to be supportive and while they are hurting, to sit with them in their pain with the focus on the person who's been betrayed versus the focus on you. And what I mean by that is, as you're sitting here, there's a lot of guilt and shame that may start to arise within you. But see, what's happened then is you've taken your focus off of them and their pain, and it's starting now to turn to your pain. And once that happens, and again, because we don't really want to sit with this and deal with this, then you're going to see that what's going to happen, you're going to try to find ways to shut this whole thing down. Whether it's like you're minimizing it, I'm not really sure why you're still upset about that, or I have answered that question a million times. I don't know what else to say to you, or you're just going to say, you know what, this is way too much for me, and you're going to withdraw. None of those are healthy approaches, but they're all driven by the fact that I have allowed my emotion to trump my partner's emotion, and that cannot take place. I need to be able to be focused on the pain in front of me, even though it's coming at me. It may be a wrath, it feels like, but instead I got to see pain. I can't see anger. Okay, I got to see the pain so I can start to understand what is the true emotion there and then be able to address that emotion. So I'm just going to go through a few more of these. I have, probably 25, but I'm not going to go through all of them here. This is an important one. When we're apart, how can you show that you're still thinking of them? Okay? How do you show, hey, you know what? You're still on my mind and in a good way when we are apart. And there's lots of ideas that people can that's ways of doing things like this. I tell folks, I go, for example, you can go get mirror chalk and you write a little note on the bathroom mirror, without them seeing it, or maybe a Bible verse, and you change that out on a regular basis. Go buy a bunch of blank cards, and every couple weeks you fill one out, put it on a bathroom vanity, or maybe drop it in their bag before they're heading out to work. I had one client of mine. What he started doing was he was writing little notes to his spouse, and he'd hide them all around the house, and she'd have to go and find them. And he wasn't telling her about it. She would just go into the pantry to get something. It's like, what's that piece of paper? It's a little note, and he was putting them all over the place. He was writing about two a day or something like that, and they started building up because she didn't find all of them. Um, and he had two kids. They're 13 and 11, and they would find them, but then they would just read them. They say that's so cute, and they put them back. They even found one they stuck in the piano that I don't know how she would ever find that one, but they found that and actually had to tell her because she had never seen it. It was 6 months later, still haven't found that one. But it's those little things that you do to demonstrate a quick text. Hey, just been thinking about you. You're on my heart. I hope your day is going well. But with that needs to be consistency. If you're not going to be consistent in that, then there's a problem. Because once you start anything that way, you have to be able to continue it. It can't be something that dies. And that's the problem. Because let me tell you, everybody who's been betrayed, they're looking at this behavior, they're looking at all of it, and then they're saying, when is it going to end? When does it die? That's what they're waiting for. And therefore it's important that it has to be a continuous effort. But where does that come from? That doesn't just come from, okay, here's my to-do list, let me keep checking it every day. It comes from the change of the heart. That, I really want to be able to express this. I feel this deep need to be able to share how much I am thinking about you. So that is another important thing. Being able to express your feelings and your resentment, not allowing them to build up, is something that they need also. Now, in this case, we have a little bit of a problem because most of the people who are involved with this type of addiction, as we talked about, they don't have a very high emotional IQ. They're not really good at being able to express their emotion because they don't really know what they're feeling. And that's why they need to go through that work, that emotional intimacy work, so they understand what do they really feel and how to be vulnerable in feeling it. Because to be vulnerable, that means I have to sit with some emotional distress and pain. But what got us here in the first place? The fact that I don't sit with emotional distress and pain. So that seems to be the situation that we're in. To understand that I sit with that distress, it's not going to kill me. It's okay. I'll be all right. But I need to be able to experience that. That's where you see real growth in an individual. That's where we see emotional maturity start to show itself. It won't be there if you don't practice that. And it is hard because all we want to do is just run away. And what we've done is we've run away with destructive sexual behaviors. So I'm just going to do one or two more, and then I'm going to open it up if we can to questions. I don't know if we can, Tammy, but we'll see. Okay. Um, so I'm going to remain in contact with other, again, here, men, or it could be women if you're a woman, sponsors, groups, counselors. I'm going to have this structure in my life that I didn't have before. And I'm going to be leaning on people who will be there to be a cornerstone for me. And that is going to be part of what I do for the rest of my life moving on. That doesn't mean you need to be in therapy for the rest of your life, okay? I don't want you in therapy for the rest of your life. I want you to be able to do this on your own, to manage it on your own. But group, hey, you know what? We should be in group. We could be in group for years. There's guys who go to AA, they've been in AA for decades. And maybe you even wind up leading a group. Maybe you're the one. Maybe you become a mentor to other men or women, depending on what is happening. But there's something that is always there because we need to keep growing as individuals. We can't become stagnant. That is not going to be healthy for us. And our spouse is going to want to see that you are continuing to grow. One of the biggest triggers is when a spouse starts to see the person who betrayed them being stagnant. A lot of television watching, maybe, strolling through the internet. Oh, I'm not watching anything bad, though. It's all good stuff, but it's just mindless. And if you just set them up where they're thinking, okay, whoa, something bad's going to happen here. There's going to be something bad. And so therefore I need to be able to sit there and say, okay, what am I going to do that's going to be good? What are the healthy things I bring into my life? And so the last thing I'm going to bring up is the idea of the need to stop focusing on what you can't fix, to stop ruminating over things that are wrong, that you get out of your own head and you be present, you be engaged with the people who are around you. That again, if we go back to the whole idea of, you know, what can I be delivering for you versus, oh, what I need. So anyway, Tammy, that's what I got for you today.
And unfortunately, I caught little glimpses of that, but unfortunately, apparently we got Twitter bombed or something like that. So we've had ongoing, unbelievable, inappropriate content. So for those of you that have joined and stayed, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to remember that there are a lot of damaged and broken people out there. I so appreciate that people are here. There is a question, a real question. My husband is a sex addict. He was involved in porn and chat rooms. He says he has been sober. I found pictures of women in sexy clothes and swimsuits. I feel this is another form of porn. Please advise how to understand this. I know he likes looking at women. I have said this is not acceptable to me. He says he's just being a normal guy.
Okay, you got to read that to me one more time and slow down. You're reading. You're so
Okay.
fast.
This has been stressful. I
I
really
understand.
hate, we want to deliver really good content to
I
people. You
know.
are amazing.
We're
And
gonna
like
we're
to
gonna do the
have,
best. We're gonna do the
yes.
best we can, right? Okay.
So what she says is my husband is a sex addict. He was involved in porn and chat rooms. He says he's sober, but she's found pictures of women in sexy clothes and swimsuits. I feel this is another form of porn. I agree. Please advise how to understand this. I know he likes looking at women. I have said this is not acceptable to me. He says he's just being a normal guy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, normal men can look and admire a beautiful woman and then leave it. I did it. She's beautiful, and I walk away. That's what a normal guy who's gone through all of the phases of childhood development and winds up with a secure attachment. He has that capability of doing that. For us guys who did not have that, who we got stuck somewhere along the line in that, we struggle because that is not just a woman of beauty, that is a thing of beauty. And that's what the difference is. Yes, substituting out bikini pictures for porn is just the same. It's just as bad. You are not calming down the brain. You're not learning how to be disciplined. You're not understanding the fact that, you know what? For some reason, your husband thinks, I need that. That's what he thinks. I need that. And the point of he doesn't need it. He thinks he needs it. And I guess what he really needs is emotional connection and intimacy. He just doesn't understand that. So, no, you are absolutely right to hold firm to your boundaries. No, we're not looking at bikini ads. We're not looking at anything like that. And when it comes to women, to start to see them the way God sees them, they are his children. And we should be respecting all of them. And that, but no, you are absolutely right. That's what's going on. I think if you want to know why, if he's doing it, he found a substitute for it. And two, he looks at women probably the way he's always looked at women, because he again got stuck in one of those five areas of development.
And I was thinking, he's not a normal guy. He's an addict.
No, that's what I said right at the
Yeah,
beginning.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
not a normal guy.
And it's like with me, I had surgery and I had to have the lowest dose of pain medication because I gave up my ability to have the good stuff. That's just part of my recovery. I can't do that anymore. I have to choose differently. So yeah, I just don't buy that at all. He's not doing, in my opinion, what he needs to do to be on a recovery. He just maybe stop the explicit porn and chat
Hmm.
rooms, but
Right.
like Eddie said, found a substitute. We talk all the time about the guys that come to Seeking Integrity Los Angeles. It's about stopping the behavior, but it's about addressing the underlying issues, because otherwise it's just hopping around and finding another way to numb out and escape. So he's just found a substitute. So next question, and we've got some legitimate questions. My husband is in recovery and I have boundaries and I don't trust myself to enforce or follow through with consequences. Can you talk about that?
Okay. Well, so he will only follow through with consequences is if you have real consequences. If he, and yes, there is a fear. I'm putting this out there. This is what I need from you. No, you don't know if he's going to adhere to it. We don't. But this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we determine if there's true remorse that's going on here. This is where we determine, is this somebody who has turned the corner and said, you know what, I want to be a new guy. I want to be different. And so you put it out there and you say, here they are. And then you watch and you see what happens. And you're in most cases that I worked with, men adhere. But there are some they don't. They just they are so defiant. The idea that somebody would even tell them what to do and not seeing again, looking outward to say she's not doing this because she's just trying to say, here's a laundry list of things that I can put you in a box. What she's saying is, I am afraid. I'm afraid, and I need something from you to help to quiet that fear. And these are some of the things that would do that. Now, tell me, what's more important? Your, whatever it is, sense of dignity, your sense of your own comfort, or is it my comfort? And that's gonna tell you a lot with it.
And I was thinking, get support for you around the boundaries. We have betrayed partner groups that I think you would find support, and you can share, here's what my boundary is, and people can go, that seems like a good boundary. And, here's how you can, so you getting support, when you're concerned that you'll be able to enforce them. Remember, well, Dr. Rob talks about this all the time. The boundaries are for your safety and for you. And the challenge with addicts is, we crash through all the boundaries. So you starting to hold them up, there's going to be some resistance, but the more you hold those in place, it's like kids, like the kids that are naughty and act out and have tantrums, they're the ones that there's no boundaries. They don't know what the rules are. So it actually provides a security for a relationship if there are clear boundaries, but addicts aren't going to like them, especially at first. So, okay, next question. My husband keeps going to strip clubs and drinking. I keep on telling him to stop, but he hits me every time. So
Sorry, he did
domestic,
what?
he hits me every time. Domestic
Oh,
violence is never acceptable. That would be one of those. There are shelters
yeah.
there in every town. There are places that you can go to find safety. So um, in that kind of active addiction, that is unacceptable. You telling him anything is clearly not going to work. Please get yourself, and if you have young
Yeah,
children,
I mean, I'll
to
be dealing
safety.
with a very violent man. And Tammy, go back to what you just said before, support groups, right? If she's in a support group, at least maybe she can help to understand why does she allow this behavior to continue? You know, what?
Yeah, you don't deserve to be hit. And I mean, the addiction is very compelling and controlling, but
Yeah,
but domestic violence is never acceptable.
that is heartbreaking, and I really hope that you get to a point where you can seek the help you need so that you can break free of him. Because as Tammy said, you don't deserve that.
No. I made a request to the unfaithful about a female person. He felt like I was controlling and playing the boss, and he doesn't allow any woman to order him, but he just stood up and left me alone. Never heard from him 42 days today. I will not
Huh?
tolerate this anymore. Do you have any encouraging words for me?
You are a very strong woman. I'm so glad to see that what you've done is you put out there what it is that you need. He has rejected it, okay, but yet you're standing firm. And I know it's hurtful. I know what you really want. You want him to come back and say, look, you know what? I was wrong. I'm sorry. I will give this to you. But that's not what happened. And instead of sitting here with wishful thinking, with trying to, bargain the sense of, well, what can I get from him? You've come to the conclusion that, what, this is not acceptable. And I'm not going to be, I go back to the other woman. You don't deserve to be treated that way. You just don't. And what? He's not the only guy out there. There are many, and there's many great men that are out there. So why hook your wagon to somebody who just going to be abusive? And that's what that is. That's abuse, a different kind of abuse.
Um, And I know, I hear you're counting the days since he left, and I know you're grieving the loss, but I want you to grieve the loss of what there really is. I mean, he is not going to let a woman order you. All you're asking for is that this you don't like a relationship that he has with another female. It was not safe for you. You were trying to set boundaries, and he just left. And I suspect that that's part of his, mo. In fact, I think you've been on before and said he's done this before to someone else. So on some level, you're grieving the loss of what you wanted to have with him, but he wasn't showing up for that. So get support for you, and at some point, you may look at that and go, "Phew, I have the opportunity to move into a relationship with somebody who's actually going to be a partner with me and support me, not somebody who." I mean, that's very controlling. If he's going, you can't do that
Mm.
to me because, I'm not going to let you control me. And then he just vanishes. That's,
Yeah, we talk about emotional immaturity. And what did he do? He had a tantrum. He had a tantrum.
and he left.
And he left
And now I'm not going to talk to you.
because he thinks he's in a power position. Okay, he's waiting for her to chase him, and she's not
Please
chasing.
don't. Yeah, please don't.
Really don't. I mean,
Yeah.
that you've taken the first step in your own recovery to get through this, to come out on the other side in a really healthy place. Congratulations to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I would invite you to start looking for gratitude. I know this is a hard time, but start looking for gratitude every day on, so now what? Um, uh, so anyway, next question. My husband got out of residential treatment for sex addiction and drug addiction 1 month ago. We are not living together currently. I said he had to achieve sobriety before I would let him come home. He is not using drugs or prostitutes, but he has used porn on 2 occasions since he got out of rehab. He is attending meetings and therapy. He wants to move back home. I don't think he is sober, and I don't know when to give up hope.
Mm. Yeah, this is a tough one now again because he was in the residential program for a while. He relapsed with pornography. Okay, he's not doing what he was doing before, but he's still, there. The behaviors are still there. Um, I I no, I think you're right. You keep your boundaries. You can't come home, but I need to see more. But I think the big question I have to you then is, how are you going to see that? I mean, the fact that I guess he told you that he looked at porn, or did you find it on something? That's an important piece for me to understand. So if you could text that to us and let us know, because again, if he came to you and told you, that's good. That's a good sign. At least he's realizing, hey, you know what? I'm not completely in a good place, and I need to. But I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, the honesty of what we're looking for. There are people who, are of the belief that, what, we gotta get this perfect all the time. There are other people who understand and say, well, you know what, people may have setbacks here and there. That's what it might have been. It may have just been a setback. But your goal is saying that he can come home after he achieved sobriety. I'm not sure how you know if he fully achieves sobriety.
She added,
Plus,
he told me about he
yeah,
told me,
okay,
yeah, yeah. So
that's a good sign. That's a very good sign. The other one, the reason I'm not trying to give him an excuse, okay, I'm not, but it could be the fact that he is again very drained and depleted by not being home, not being in that environment. and therefore that's what led to the pornography use. Again, he's got to be able to come to you, go to one of his sponsors, somebody, say, I'm really struggling, I'm having a hard day today. That's where he has to learn how to do, but that may be part of what's going on here. And maybe, can we look at it and say, okay, well, that was growth that he told me. Do I give him a chance? I mean, whether he's out of the house or in the house, do I give him a chance? I don't know. Tammy, what are you thinking?
Well, Dr. Rob has talked about this a lot on his webinar, and he's talked about slips. And this to me is a slip, not a relapse. And he's talked. I'd invite you, if you haven't discerned between the two. So what I hear is he's not doing his primary. He's had a couple of slips. It's early in recovery. It is a very challenging time. It's COVID. He's out of the house. I mean, I'm not, again, like Eddie said, not making any excuses for him, but I'm not saying you should have him back in the house. I'm inviting you to look at, could you see a path where, there's therapeutic separation within the home? There's a lot of people that move to
Right.
that might be a next step. If you don't see any repair for the relationship, then it may be time to take more legal action. I honestly hear some encouragement because he came to you and he told you about, two slips. And, for someone who's an addict who lies and cheats and hides and everything else, for him to be going to therapy, I hear he's going to meetings. Maybe he needs to up his level, he's attending meetings and therapy, and he still had a couple of slips. So does he need to up, the level of therapy? Maybe he needs to go to therapy twice a week. Maybe he needs, to go to more meetings. Maybe he needs to talk to his sponsor more often, so he's made progress. Hopefully you're seeing some beyond that he shared with you. It's always devastating to hear, because we always want everyone to be fixed. They're never going to do that again. And and with chemical, it's challenging, but with chemical, it's really clear. You don't ever do this. I never have to pick up, a drink again, etc. And there's still people who slip, or relapse. But what I hear is he's coming to you. He's trying to be honest. And so to me, honestly, I feel hope. But
yeah, I think you're right. There is a sense of encouragement there. Again, I always look at it as relapse. That I don't buy the slip word, but again, that's the difference is that
listen to
we
Dr.
as
Rob's. Yeah, no, because it's
I know
like
I've
it's
heard
very
them all
different.
say
Yeah,
it, but
yeah,
I'm in a different place
yeah,
because I'm
yeah,
looking for that. But I understand. But again, there is encouragement.
yeah, yeah. So um, I gotta remove more people. Sorry.
Oh,
Um, yeah. So the next question is, I'm going to paraphrase this one because I'm not sure this is a real question. So, with somebody in addiction, like there may not necessarily be a type. How does someone show they're being faithful when, you can't just go, well, that person would be his type. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like I said, I'm not 100% sure it's a legit
I'm not quite
question.
sure I understand what type means.
Well, like
We're
type,
talking about.
like height, certain build, etc.
That they're
So yeah,
interested
yeah,
in
yeah.
that
Over
they
the
have.
years, you learn your husband's type.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there is the whole thing about imago therapy, and imago is the idea that we have an imprint in the back of our head of someone who, a caregiver of some type, who we will naturally be gravitated to, we will be pulled to. For me, all right, now here I'm going to disclose, okay? For me, women with bangs, okay, and dark hair. Yeah, don't you're blonde,
I'm
so
good.
you don't get off with blank. But this is the key, right? You put 100 women in front of me, the ones who have the bangs with the dark hair, they're just gonna pop up. I don't have to be attracted to them. What I'm attracted to is the bang, and what it really is not so much sexual as it is just soothing. It's a sense of soothing and comfort. Okay, so you're probably saying, why? What's this thing you got about bang? Well, I was raised by three women, and they all had bangs.
Oh,
And I didn't realize until I was almost in my early 40s that's what it was. But it's like anytime I see a woman with bangs, like again, she just pop out at me. I'm able to just say, okay, move it away. But like I said, it's not even from a sexual standpoint. So we all have those imprints in us. And but the thing is, most of us don't know what those imprints are for us. Um, so the type, it really depends on doing that self-reflection to figure it out. Now, I will tell you, there are some guys who have no type. They really don't. They whatever.
anything. Yep.
Right, she's breathing. Okay, but again, that's objectification. And if we move away, we don't worry so much about the types as we do just worry more about stopping the objectification from happening, letting them see women as people.
So the next question, how much internet TV time do you recommend for a person who's in restoration sobriety?
Okay, well, one thing that I recommend is that we're not just getting on the computer and just scrolling along looking for things. Okay, let me look at this board thing. Now let me look at that political thing. No, we're not doing any of that. I'm also limiting a lot social media. And I'm limiting it because one, you don't really even need it. Okay, there's really no value that comes out of the social media in any of them. I have it, but I use it basically just to promote different things that I'm doing and such. Um, television's different because TV, I mean, my gosh, I mean, you can go watch a sitcom at 8 o'clock at night, and the stuff that will come up is just so. We're trying to get people to change their whole structure and what they did. So we have somebody who watched a lot of television or surfed the internet a great deal. What we're going to try to do is say, hey, what else can we find for you that would be, again, that would entertain but not be to that point, even video game. It could be like maybe they take up reading, for example, or they take up journaling, or they take up, or writing, and they take up, it's more about music. It's something we want to break away. So therefore, if they were watching TV every night from like 6 to 11, maybe we can't give it up, but we cut it back down. But what's really important is, what are you watching? More so than you're watching it, what are you watching? And you got to be extremely careful, because with the exception of maybe sporting events and certain documentaries and the Animal Channel, or the Home Network, you're gonna find stuff everywhere. And you may even find stuff on the Animal Network. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, you got to be careful with what you're doing.
Yeah, and well, and yes, we've been watching Animal Planet and all of those a lot lately. But I was talking to somebody, my grandparents and everybody used to watch. My grandmother used to watch the soap operas, and everybody was in twin beds, and it was very chaste, and like that was like daytime TV things weren't permitted, and now it just doesn't
Yeah,
matter. So yeah, so
right.
I find TV to can be very triggering for a lot of people. And it's very easy, like one of the first questions was about, well, it's just, this is just normal. Just because it's normal doesn't mean that it's healthy for us, and
That's
we can
right.
choose different things.
That's
um
right.
if it, you know I really think the more people pay attention, if you don't want to know what a three circle plan is, I would invite you to learn more. And really, any addiction, any compulsive behavior, having a three circle plan. But the outer circle is what's healthy for you. And the more you're spending time doing that, middle circle, can be, zoning out on TV or computer. And then inner circle obviously is the things where it's a relapse. But like life, in my opinion, is to be lived in that outer circle. What's healthy, what supports us, what nurtures us.
Hmm.
That's what's meaningful. And so to just be zoned out, on any technology for, whether it's TV or whatever. Everybody needs a mental health break. Okay, so zoning out a little bit, but to be so constantly and to have, the time lapse where you go, wow, 4 hours just went by and I didn't even notice. That's
Yeah.
that's
We're
challenging.
back.
And
We're back to dissociating. That's
yeah,
what we're doing. Doing the
yeah, and
same thing again.
particularly in this time, the more ways we can figure out how to, to create healthy attachments, healthy support, healthy engagements, connections with real people, that's been what saved me, I think, during all of
Yeah.
this. So we're out of questions,
And we're
and
almost out of time.
I was going to say, and the way it's just been so.
I will say that, again, to go back to what you were just talking about, it is about the idea of structure, and it is about the idea of doing something different. We're not going back to the same lifestyle. We can't, just like we can't go back to the same marriage. It has to look different, has to feel different, because what we had didn't work. And therefore, it's like, okay, what's new that we are changing up? And hopefully part of what's new is that strong emotional connection. Maybe it's like, what, we never really went and did the outdoor stuff, but now we're going to go on more walks. We're going to go on more hikes. We're going to, take adventures and do things like that. Maybe we spent too much time sitting in the house watching TV. Well, now we're going to get out of the house and do that. Maybe we didn't, do devotionals or a Bible study or pray together, but maybe that's what we're going to start doing now. In that way, maybe we never went out to dinner. Maybe we never celebrated birthdays, events, but that's what we're going to start to do. We change everything up in order to make it different and to make it, to what Tammy just said before, healthy. We're looking for a healthy lifestyle. We're looking for a balance in our life, because before it was way out of balance, and sex was that, that had a stronghold on us, and that can no longer be the case.
Well, and I really think it's one of those things too, where my therapist suggested I be intentional. So it isn't just going for a walk and just walking, which is, I can do, but like I am intentional. I'm looking around, I'm looking at things, I'm taking it in, which
Nice.
has been hugely helpful for me. I'm
Yeah.
intentional because I was feeling like the day was taking away with me, and my therapist said, start, I now start, I have a little app.
Yeah.
I start with that app for a morning
Mm-hmm.
message that is meaningful to me, and it just starts my day with intentionality, and it's not like the day just coming at me
Yeah.
and
Right.
happening, kind of like the
But
texts on here. So
you're being mindful of things. And again,
yes,
mindfulness, we go back to my inner child recovery process. Mindfulness is a cornerstone of that. Because if I'm not mindful, then I don't know, am I drained mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually? If I'm not mindful, I don't know if I got hit with a core emotional trigger that can activate my kid. And besides, you know what? When you're mindful, you're living. You're truly living life, versus in your own head down, and just running through life.
which at the end of the day doesn't really have much meaning.
No, not at all.
So thank you, my friend Eddie. It was great to see you. We'll see you
You're
next month.
welcome.
For those of you that have joined, that have participated, thank you for weathering the challenges, and hopefully the people that are problematic choose a different path. So we can only hope. So thanks, everybody.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.